Breakdown of sprawling election meddling indictment against Trump. File: Former President Donald Trump speaks at a campaign event in Las Vegas on July 8, 2023. A Justice Department indictment on August 1, 2023, accuses Trump of conspiring with allies to overturn his 2020 election loss. Donald Trump for years has promoted baseless claims that the 2020 election was stolen from him. In truth, Trump was the one who tried to steal the election, federal prosecutors said Tuesday in a sprawling indictment that paints the former president as desperate to cling to power he knew had been stripped away by voters. The Justice Department indictment accuses Trump of brazenly conspiring with allies to spread falsehoods and concoct schemes intended to overturn his election loss to President Joe Biden as his legal challenges foundered in court. The felony charges brought by Special Counsel Jack Smith are built around the words of White House lawyers and others in his inner circle who repeatedly told Trump there was no fraud. It's the third time this year the early frontrunner in the 2024 Republican presidential primary has been charged in a criminal case. But it's the first case to try to hold Trump responsible for his efforts to remain in power during the chaotic weeks between his election loss and the attack by his supporters on the U.S. Capitol on January 6, 2021. Trump has said he did nothing wrong, and he has accused Smith and the Justice Department of trying to harm his 2024 campaign. Here's a look at the charges Trump faces and other key issues in the indictment. With what is Trump charged? Trump is charged with 4 counts: obstruction of an official proceeding, conspiracy to obstruct an official proceeding, conspiracy to defraud the U.S., and conspiracy to prevent others from carrying out their constitutional rights. In the obstruction charge, which carries penalties of up to 20 years in prison, the official proceeding refers to the January 6, 2021, joint session of Congress at which electoral votes were counted in order to certify Biden as the official winner. Conspiracy to obstruct an official proceeding also carries a maximum of 20 years in prison. That obstruction charge has been brought against hundreds of the more than 1,000 people charged in the January 6 riot, including members of the far-right Oath Keepers and Proud Boys extremist groups. More than 100 people have been convicted at trial or pleaded guilty to the offense. Conspiracy to defraud the U.S., which is punishable by up to 5 years in prison, prohibits efforts to obstruct or interfere with government functions by deceit, craft, or trickery, or at least by means that are dishonest, the Supreme Court has held. The indictment alleges that Trump used dishonesty, fraud, and deceit to obstruct the counting and certifying of the election results. Trump had the right to contest the election, and even falsely claim that he had won, the indictment says. The charges, however, stem from what prosecutors say were illegal efforts to subvert the election results and block the peaceful transfer of power. The indictment alleges a weeks-long plot that began with pressure on state lawmakers and election officials to change electoral votes from Biden to Trump, and then evolved into organizing fake slates of pro-Trump electors to be sent to Congress. Trump and his allies also attempted to use the Justice Department to conduct bogus election fraud investigations in order to boost his fake electors scheme, the indictment says. As January 6 approached, Trump and his allies pressured Vice President Mike Pence to reject certain electoral votes, and when that failed, the former president directed his supporters to go to the Capitol to obstruct Congress's certification of the vote, the indictment alleges. Filed: police clear the U.S. Capitol building with tear gas as supporters of President Donald Trump gather outside in Washington on January 6, 2021. Finally, the indictment says, Trump and his allies tried to exploit his supporters' attack on the Capitol by redoubling their efforts to spread election lies and convince members of Congress to further delay the certification of Biden's victory. Each of these conspiracies, which built on the widespread mistrust the defendant was creating through pervasive and destabilizing lies about election fraud, targeted a bedrock function of the United States federal government, the nation's process of collecting, counting, and certifying the results of the presidential election, the indictment says. What is the conspiracy against rights charge? Trump is accused of violating a post-Civil War era civil rights statute that makes it a crime to conspire to interfere with rights that are guaranteed by the Constitution, in this case, the right to vote and have one's vote counted. It's punishable by up to 10 years in prison. The provision was originally part of a set of laws passed